You know, addiction isn't really about pleasure, it's about pain. It's not about the bottle, the cigarette, or the endless scrolling on your phone. It's about something quieter, something hidden. The silence we try to avoid, the emptiness we try to fill, the voice inside us that we've learned to ignore. Dr. Gabor Maté once said, "The question is not why the addiction, but why the pain." And that changes everything, doesn't it? Because when you start from that question, you stop seeing addiction as weakness and begin to see it as a message from your deeper self, from the part of you that's been left behind. There's a story in psychology, one that Carl Jung often hinted at, about the shadow. He said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In other words, the parts of us that we reject, deny, or hide, though, they don't go away. They wait. They wait in the quiet, and sometimes they speak through the very things that hurt us. Maybe that's why addiction feels so personal. It's not just a habit, it's a relationship. A secret bond between the part of you that's hurting and the part of you that wants to escape the hurt. We think we're fighting a habit, but really we're fighting ourselves. Think about it. When you open your phone for the 10th time in an hour, when you reach for a drink after a long day, when you can't stop thinking about what people think of you, something inside is asking to be seen. Addiction is not the enemy, it's the messenger. And the moment you stop fighting it, not surrendering but listening, something starts to shift. Gabor Maté, in his work with trauma and healing, described addiction as an attempt to solve a problem that life itself created. He said that the substances, the behaviors, even the obsessions, they're all adaptive responses to unbearable pain. It's your psyche trying to protect itself. It's your nervous system saying, "I can't handle this right now." And that's why pure willpower so often fails. Because you can't simply fight your body's own coping mechanism. You have to understand it. You have to make peace with it. Carl Jung once told a patient, "You cannot heal what you refuse to confront." And that's where healing begins. Not by running from the darkness, but by turning toward it. You see, every addiction, every obsession, every compulsion, it has a story. And if you look closely, that story usually starts long before the habit began. Maybe it started in childhood, when you learned that love had to be earned. Maybe it began when you felt unseen, unheard, or unsafe. Maybe it's a grief that was never spoken, or a loneliness that became too heavy to bear. So you found something that helped you forget, even if just for a moment. And for that moment, it worked. You felt okay, you felt whole, but then the moment ended and the emptiness returned. A little deeper this time, a little heavier. And so the cycle began.
In psychology, we call this negative reinforcement. You do something not to gain pleasure, but to avoid pain. And that's the key difference between joy and addiction. Joy is about presence, addiction is about escape. When you drink because you're celebrating, that's one thing. But when you drink because you can't stand being alone with yourself, that's something else entirely. Carl Jung believed that what we call addiction is actually a form of spiritual hunger. He said every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol or morphine or idealism. Why? Because the addictive act replaces genuine spiritual experience. It gives you a counterfeit sense of transcendence. That moment when you feel high, detached, or numb, it's a false awakening. The real journey, Jung said, is to find connection with the self, the wholeness within that doesn't need escape. He called it individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, beyond your conditioning, beyond your trauma, beyond the mask. But here's the hard truth. The parts of us that we most want to hide are often the very parts that hold the key to our freedom. Your anger, your shame, your guilt, they are not enemies. They are messengers carrying energy that's been trapped inside you. When you numb them, you don't destroy them. You just silence them temporarily. Sooner or later, they find another way to speak. Sometimes through addiction, sometimes through anxiety, sometimes through the body itself. As Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So what if, instead of trying to suppress the craving, you listen to it? The next time you feel that pull, that sudden urge to scroll, to eat, to drink, to run, pause. Don't judge it, just ask, what am I really looking for right now? Is it comfort? Connection, rest? Meaning? If you listen carefully, you might hear a small voice inside saying, "I'm tired. I'm lonely. I just want to feel safe." And when you respond to that voice, not with punishment but with compassion, you start to break the cycle. Modern neuroscience backs this up. Studies from the University of Pennsylvania and Harvard have shown that mindfulness-based therapies reduce relapse rates significantly because they change how the brain relates to craving. Instead of seeing the craving as an enemy, you start to see it as data, a signal, and in doing so, the craving loses its power. Dr. Judson Brewer, a neuroscientist who studies habit formation, said it perfectly. The moment you bring awareness to a craving, you create a space between the urge and the action, and in that space lies freedom. That space is where healing happens. You see, addiction thrives in secrecy and shame. When we hide, it grows. When we name it, it weakens. That's why connection, real, honest human connection, is one of the most powerful antidotes to addiction. Because the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. That's what researcher Johann Hari meant when he said, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. When people feel seen, when they belong, when they're allowed to be imperfect, the need for escape begins to fade.
But connection starts within. If you can't be present with yourself, no amount of external validation will fill that gap. You can have thousands of followers, endless distractions, but still feel empty when you're alone. And that's because healing doesn't come from adding more. It comes from feeling what's already there. The philosopher Alan Watts once said, "You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at itself." Meaning there's nothing missing in you. You're just disconnected from it. Addiction, in a strange way, is the search for that lost connection, just pointed in the wrong direction. Let's be honest, healing isn't glamorous. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, it's sitting with your pain without running from it. It's crying without knowing why. It's forgiving yourself for the person you were when you didn't know better. But every time you sit through a craving without acting on it, every time you feel your pain and still choose compassion, you're rewiring your brain. You're teaching your nervous system that safety isn't found in escape but in presence. That's real courage. Carl Jung described this process as the integration of the shadow, bringing light into the places we've hidden from ourselves. He said that wholeness doesn't come from perfection, but from embracing our contradictions. You are both light and dark, strong and fragile, brave and afraid. And the moment you stop trying to fix yourself and instead begin to understand yourself, something changes. The addiction starts to lose its meaning, because the part of you that needed it finally feels seen. Maybe that's what true recovery means. Not becoming someone new, but coming home to yourself. There's a quote by the poet Rumi, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." That's the essence of what Jung and Maté were trying to tell us. Your wounds aren't proof of your weakness. They are proof of your humanity. Every craving, every relapse, every moment of despair is another chance to listen to what's really going on beneath the surface. Healing doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be honest. Let me tell you something that most people don't realize. When you start healing your addiction, you're not just healing yourself. You're healing your entire story. You're rewriting the patterns that were passed down from your parents and their parents before them. You're breaking generational pain, because trauma doesn't only live in memories, it lives in reactions, in habits, in the body. And when you bring awareness to it, you're doing something incredibly powerful. You're turning pain into wisdom. So the next time you feel like you're failing, you ought to remember, even the act of noticing your craving means you're waking up. Awareness itself is healing. Don't rush it. Don't fight it. Just stay. Stay with the discomfort. Stay with yourself. Because on the other side of that discomfort is something extraordinary. Peace. Not the peace of absence, but the peace of presence. Maybe you'll never be completely free of your cravings. Maybe you'll always have that part of you that wants to escape. But that's okay. Freedom doesn't mean never falling. It means learning to stand back up with awareness again and again. You are not your addiction. You are the awareness behind it, the consciousness that observes it, the compassion that holds it. As Jung said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." So take a deep breath. Wherever you are in your journey, it's okay. You're not broken. You're becoming whole. And maybe that's the real victory. Not conquering addiction, but transforming the energy behind it into something alive, something creative, something human. Because the truth is, you will never let addiction win again. Once you realize it was never the enemy in the first place.